Excellent. So thank you for joining us today. We are A Few Cool Hardware Stores, a group of 13 locally owned and operated Ace Hardware locations in the DC Baltimore metro area. This is the second in a string of chats as part of our annual garden party celebration, as we bring our customers and community a series of gardening tips and stories from our nonprofit partners, product vendors, and in-store experts. The celebration continues through Mother's Day, and you can find more information on our garden party website at www.acehardwaredc.com, where we post weekly updates and gardening related content. You can also follow us on Instagram at cool_hardware or on Facebook by searching for your local store by name. Next week's chat is on Cicada Brood X with local entomologist Gay Williams of the Maryland Department of Agriculture. So save the date for Thursday, May 6th at 1 p.m. Details to follow on Facebook. A little bit of housekeeping. This video is recorded and will be available on our website and social media. And today we're chatting with Mike Huber, our local rep for Espoma Organic and the Espoma Company. Since 1929, the Espoma Company has been the pioneer in natural garden solutions. Their high-quality line of tones for gardeners offer a highly specialized fertilizer formula for practically any application and are designed as a ready, out-of-the-bag product, making it accessible to a wide variety of skill level. We're so excited to learn more about your products, Mike, and thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Very cool. So tell us a bit about Espoma's history, where are you guys based out of, and what are the core values your company lives by?
Sure. And thanks again, Courtney. We are a fourth generation family-owned company based out of Millville, New Jersey, which is southern New Jersey. It's about 45 minutes north of Cape May. That gives you kind of where we are. But we started in 1929, so this is our 92nd year. We've been organic from the beginning, since 1929. We started out with one product back then. It was called Espoma Organic Plant Food. Some other facts. In 1949, we created we created a new category. We created the first plant food designed for. It was initially designed for hollies, but not just hollies, all acid-loving plants and most evergreens, your azaleas, rhododendrons, your blueberries, that kind of thing, with a product called Hollytone, which Hollytone today remains our #1 seller in our line, but that came out in 1949. A lot has changed since 1929, obviously, since to today. But our geographic territory was originally designed to service the New York, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. area. We're now in all 50 states. We have over 70 products from that one product that we started with in 1929. We've gone from mixing our product in wheelbarrows and with shovels to an automated process. So a lot has changed since then, but our core value is not, and that's to develop the finest, most effective natural and organic products that grow beautiful lawn and gardens while preserving natural resources and creating for a greener planet for future generations.
Very cool. And I know that Espoma has a very strong sustainability method in what they do, and that's
Correct.
part of your everyday operations.
Correct. We feel, part of one of our core values is being a good, responsibility as individuals, but also environmentally responsible as a company. And we do that through various ways, obviously through our product line, but not just through our product line. All of our organic products are approved. You'll see the logo on the back of our bags, approved by the CDFA, which is the California Department of Food and Agriculture. They have very strict requirements to get that label on your bag. Our entire manufacturing facility and offices in Millville are completely run on solar power. So again, and in terms of reducing, it reduces so much electricity. It reduces approximately 1.6 million pounds of greenhouse gases annually. So in terms of saving CO2 gases. It's equivalent to planting 2 million trees a year. So it's pretty amazing. In addition to that, we've always strived to be a zero waste manufacturing facility where less than 1% of our packaging goes to waste, but all of our raw material is used that we utilize. We're the largest recycler of raw manure in the United States. And what does that mean? Well, it prevents that manure from leaching into our water supply. So we're very proud of that. And then continuing to develop innovation, in 2019, our organic plant food packaging went to a bio-preferred plastic. So 25% of the resin is made from sugarcane. Again, a sustainable, reusable resource, and we're cutting down on the carbon footprint and the fossil fuels used to make the plastic. So we're excited about that, and we're involved in many nonprofit organizations and environmental organizations throughout the country as well that all do make positive impacts on the environment. So we're very proud of that.
Very cool. Well, I feel like that's a company you can feel good supporting, especially being 100% solar and manufacturing. I find that to be very impressive. So, so a little applause for Espoma, I would say. Thanks. Cool. So I appreciate you giving us some context for who you guys are. But tell us a little bit about what differentiates your products from others that are available on the market.
Sure. And again, when we talk about the tones, we're talking about holly tone and plant tone, and we'll get into a little bit of specifics. But when you're looking at plant foods on the shelf, you really have two options. You have synthetic, and you have natural organics, which our products are. Synthetics tend to only feed the major nutrients. And I'll backtrack just a little bit. Plants need approximately 16 nutrients on an equal basis to be at their best and to grow and to produce the most yield and be vibrant and to be healthy. Only 3 come from the air and water. That's carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. The rest are fed from the soil. What our product line does compared to a synthetic is we tend to want to feed the soil that's going to feed the plant. So we're really, every time you use our product, you're improving your soil, which is going to feed the plant. Synthetics tend to feed the major nutrients, which is nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Those are the nutrients that you see on the front of a fertilizer bag when you walk through the fertilizer aisle, whether it says 10-10-10 or 5-10-5. The reason they're labeled on the front is that those 3 major nutrients are needed in the most amounts by the plant. But there's also minor nutrients and micronutrients that are required. And any deficiency in those nutrients, you're going to have a deficiency in the plant. What differentiates our product line from maybe a synthetic is that we do feed not only the NPK or the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, but we're going to guarantee the minor nutrients and also get those micronutrients that the plant needs as well. So that's one of the major differences. The other thing is our products stay where you put them. They do not leach. We use a complex blend of natural organics in every bag that need to be digested by soil microbes. So the nutrients in the food is released slowly and in a form that the plants can utilize. So it stays where you put it, as opposed to maybe a synthetic that could, if it's a 20-20-20, the plants can't utilize all that fertilizer at once. The rest leaches out again into our waterways, which is where we don't want it. So that's one of the advantages, and what separates. So it won't leach, it won't burn. All our products are our tones are always have a very low salt index. So it's compared to a synthetic, which has a high salt index. So your possibility to burn your plant by over applying or by applying when the plant is stressed is much higher with a synthetic than it is with our product.
Mhm.
The other thing I'll say is our products contain biotone. What is biotone? Good question. Easy way to remember it is just think of soil bacteria, B, biotone, but beneficial bacteria. They're soil microbes. It's our proprietary blend of selected soil microbes that we put in each bag of our organic fertilizers. And what they do is, again, they'll once the plant food is in the ground, they will digest that plant food and release those nutrients because of the complex blend of nutrients that are in the organics. They'll release it in a form that the plants can utilize. So the biotone enhances everything about the plant's growth: shoot weight, root growth, more blooms. You're going to get more yield off your vegetable garden. You're going to get a disease-resistant plant, a drought-resistant plant, everything. So biotone is kind of the secret ingredient in our plant foods that really make it go. And in addition to that, by 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 breaking down those nutrients and releasing them in a form that you can utilize, it's going to improve your soil structure every time you use it, because the byproduct of that digestion is humus in the soil. You're creating humus every time you use a tone or an Espoma Organic tone. Humus is a fantastic soil medium. It's basically what's left after the decomposition of organic material, and it acts like a sponge for nutrients, water, in the soil that it holds there for the plant, and then when the plant needs it, it will release it as the plants utilize it. So again, improving soil structure. You don't get that with a synthetic. You'll get that with using the tones. Where they're long lasting compared to a water soluble synthetic. So there's lots of slow release nitrogen in our products. So again, it's going to feed the plant slowly and as the plant needs it. And probably the most important thing is it's safe. It's safe for people, pets, and the planet. The 3 Ps, right? And not just, when I say pets, not just dogs and cats, our outdoor pets, birds, rabbits, squirrels, earthworms, everything in the yard. That's important. So safety, there's no toxic chemicals in our bag. There's no fillers or sludges or inert ingredients. You can feel comfortable using it around your the kids and the pets in the yard. So,
Yeah. It sounds like it's almost like it's like a multivitamin for your yard. You want like a little bit of everything to get the most, to maximize. So very cool.
And one thing I will add is that the synthetic companies tried to mimic the tones or the organics by coming out with slow release synthetics, and there are slow release synthetics that will feed slowly, but you don't get all those benefits that I talked about that you do by using the tones and an organic product. So
that's cool. It's very good to know.
Yeah.
And then tell us a little bit more about the tones. I know you guys, the Espoma company has, how many tones do you have? Maybe 10?
There's 14 total.
14.
So, and they were all developed in conjunction with nursery and horticulture professionals. So there are differences. There are slight differences as you look at each bag, and they were developed specifically for that product. So we do have a product for roses, which is called Rose Tone, obviously. We do have a product, obviously, for our acid-loving plants called Holly Tone. And maybe I should touch base just for everybody's knowledge. Acid-loving and alkaline soil pH is critical when you're looking at, and you should always, and I'm sure you have at the store, soil test kits that customers can test their soil to see. And all it is pH is just a scale from 0 to 14, where with 7 being neutral. The lower the number, the more acidic, the higher the number, alkaline. Some plants, like I mentioned earlier, your azaleas, your rhododendrons, your camellias, your blueberries, your raspberries, prefer, and most of your evergreens prefer an acidic soil. So we make the Holly Tone. We add some elemental sulfur into that product, to acidify the soil, and that's the food that they enjoy. Um, the other great product that we have is Biotone Starter Plus. That's a starter plant food where all of the tones, and I mentioned what biotone is, all of the tones contain our beneficial soil microbial package called biotone. What's great about Biotone Starter Plus, and you can see it in the picture, I'll kind of point to it, but that's a starter fertilizer that has almost 50% more biotone in it than any of the other tones. So we put 50% more microbial package in that. And then the plus part is mycorrhizae. So what is mycorrhizae? Mycorrhizae is a beneficial fungus. So we're talking about bacteria and fungus today, but the good kind. And what that'll do is basically connects to the root system of a plant and fans out far and wide. So if my hand were the root system of a plant, plants can only get water nutrients from, it's hard to say, I know. Plants can only get water nutrients from the tips of the roots. But what it'll do is it'll connect up and down the root system of a plant and fan out. And what that does is, especially when you use the Biotone Starter Plus at time of planting, you could also, it's a great product to use as you're repotting a house plant or putting a freshly one of your house plants that you want to put into a new container. Great product to mix in. The key with it is it needs to be applied in the root zone. So because you want the mycorrhizae to come in contact with the roots, and they fan out far and wide. And what does that do? Essentially brings more water. It brings more channels for water nutrients to get to the plant. So your plants will establish quicker. It'll eliminate transplant shock when you get your plants home and put it into the ground. But that's our starter fertilizer.
Well, it seems like it also has to help with the growth too, right? Like if
absolutely,
you are
it'll help all aspects of the plant. It'll again, you'll get more blooms, you'll get more fruit, just a healthier plant. And we're none of us. I live, where I live in Pennsylvania. It's not great soil to be planting in. So when you're planting in tough soil conditions, it tends to be more on the rocky clay shale side for me. So you need something that's the mycorrhizae is going to be there for you to bring water and nutrients into the plant. And for people closer to the beach, maybe with more sandy soil, again, same thing. It's going to help the moisture get to your plant. And then keep in mind the biotone, where you're improving with 50% more bacteria in that product, you're creating more humus in the soil. So if you have have a heavy clay base, what does humus do? It's almost like a sponge. It creates air pockets, allows moisture and nutrients to get to the root system, but it'll actually hold it there. And then same thing with sandy soil. Sandy soil, it tends to be, you water it and all the nutrients run out, and you can't keep things moist. It'll hold nutrients. It'll act like a sponge. So again, the Biotone Starter Plus, use it with everything you plant: annuals, perennials, trees, shrubs, repotting a house plant, you name it. So that's our starter. Then we talked about Hollytone, which your acid-loving plants. We have Tree Tone, which is more for your shade, ornamental, and fruit trees. Then we have Tomato Tone, which obviously we have Tomato Tone and Garden Tone. So the difference is Tomato Tone, we add more calcium and potassium to help prevent blossom end rot, which can be a lack of calcium or calcium deficiency for tomatoes. So that's the difference between the Tomato Tone and the Garden Tone. Garden Tone is great for your herb garden or any of your other vegetables. If you have mostly tomatoes, though, I would go with Tomato Tone. Then we do have a product called Flower Tone, which is for your annuals, perennials, and hanging baskets. Plant Tone, which is kind of our all-purpose. If you have a little bit of everything in your garden, it's a great product to go to. Bulb Tone, kind of self-explanatory for your spring and fall bulbs. And then we do have some unique products, Iron Tone, which can be used in your lawn, but also on your plants to correct any iron deficiencies. And then we have Citrus Tone and Palm Tone, which so that's kind of completes the line, but there are subtle differences to it. I always start with Biotone Starter Plus when you're planting for anything you plant, and then go to your maintenance feed, which would be one of your tones for your feeding for your established plants. That's kind of how it's like a two-step.
Well, what if you had, let's say I had tomato tone and I accidentally applied it to some of my other garden plants. Have I killed my whole garden or?
No, absolutely not. The great thing about our line, and again, it's not because of the slow release, because of the low salt content that we talked about before. It's a very forgiving, and it's going to help your other plants. But they are designed for those specific plants to get the most out of. There are differences to it, but no, that wouldn't. If you had some tomato tone left in your shed and you go, I want to use it for my perennials, it's not gonna hurt your plants.
That's awesome.
But obviously, you want to go with plant tone or flower tone if you have. Yeah. So.
But I do feel there are times where I've
absolutely
been a little lazy, or just grabbed whatever's closest, or didn't want to buy another bag if I've got some left. So it's awesome to know that there's no risk, and I feel like synthetics, that is something that you have to consider in a little bit of detail. So awesome. Well, how much gardening expertise does someone need to have in order to find the product on the shelf and use it? Like, it seems with all your labeling, it's a no-brainer. If you've got flowers, you get the flower tone.
Correct. We try to make it as foolproof as we can. Again, if you're not sure, plant tone is always a great option. Mm-hmm. That's kind of our versatile player, our all-purpose fertilizer. If you're not sure, and if you have a little bit of each in your garden, go with plant tone. It's a great 5-3-3 overall fertilizer. The other thing is, on our website, excuse me, we have a plant finder that you can go to espoma.com. Under the Learn section and under Plant Finder, you can type in your plant if you're not sure which tone to get, and it'll bring up a list. On the Holly tone, we do have on the side panel a list of acid-loving plants that would prefer the Holly tone, product as well. So we try to make it as easy as possible.
Yeah, it seems like if you can read the bag, you can find the right fertilizer.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And then how about applying it? Like, how often do you use it? How do you have to mix it in with water? Like, what are the general tones?
Sure. So it's a ready to use. There's no mixing with water. We have easy directions on the back of the bag, based on the size of the plant. If it's an established plant, you want to apply it around the drip line. And what I mean by that is, if imagine me holding an umbrella. And when you're because a lot of people ask what is the drip line? Mm-hmm. Line is the plant. If just like as you're holding an umbrella and the rain is falling off, that circle wherever the rain comes off the umbrella down to the ground, just like a plant. That's the drip line of the plant. That's where the reason you want to you apply it like salt and pepper or putting cheese on a pizza, kind of. You put it around the drip line. I'm getting hungry now. You put it around the drip line. And you could work it in with a cultivator or just with your hands, with your garden gloves on, and work it in. Just scratch it into the soil. It doesn't need to be dug down or trenched. And the reason you want to go around the drip line is that's where all the feeder roots are for the plant. So you don't want to put it. You want to stay at least 3 inches away from the base of the plant. But that's how to apply it. And again, the directions are cut and dry, pretty much based on the branch spread of the plant and how much you apply. And again, we allow some wiggle room there. Okay, it's that's the great thing about our line. It's very forgiving. So if you think, oh my gosh, I over applied it, again, it's not like over applying a synthetic where you could burn a plant because of the high salt content. Keep in mind, it's okay. You're going to be okay with our plant. So that's how to do an established plant, and you can apply that in your containers as well. So if you have outdoor containers, you could take plant tone and just go around the rim of the plant. You don't want to go near the base of the plant. Go around the pot edges. You could certainly use the granular form for your outdoor plants. In terms of the Biotone Starter Plus, again, we talked about that plant. That is unique. So that does not go around like salt and pepper around the drip line. That needs to be, again, needs to be in the root zone because the mycorrhizae need to come in contact with the roots. And the reason that is, it's kind of like it's a symbiotic relationship. Mycorrhizae get sugars from the plant to survive and grow. And the benefits of the plant are it gets more channels or a bigger surface area, a bigger root system. So, but it needs to be in the root zone because if you sprinkled Biotone Starter Plus around the drip line, you would get the benefits of the biotone, right? The bacteria, but the mycorrhizae wouldn't survive. It needs to be in contact with the roots. So, as you're planting in the yard, when you dig your planting hole, and if it's we recommend you do twice as wide as the root ball, roughly the same depth. I like to leave it about an inch little height above. You have your hole dug, remove half the soil, replace it with a garden compost or our garden soil, which or a nice blend, and mix it in with that, and then backfill your hole. I usually put it in a wheelbarrow, my garden soil, and I put my biotone in the wheelbarrow. I mix it in, and then I dump it in, so it's in the root zone. And then you go ahead and fill the remaining part of your planting hole and water in. After all applications, whether you're doing the tones for maintenance or whether you're doing the Biotone Starter Plus, when done, water it in. If any get on the leaves, make sure you brush it off. You don't want to leave it on the foliage. And then mulch to preserve and conserve water.
Very cool. Now, I tend to procrastinate a little. Is it ever too late to fertilize? Like, I feel like sometimes June rolls around and my plants are looking a little sad or droopy or like they haven't really grown that much, and I'm thinking like, oh, I should have fertilized, but is it still too late at that time, or can I still put something down?
No, absolutely. Because it's slow release, and again, because of the low salt index and the nature of our product, your annuals, perennials, you can feed once a month throughout the growing season. You don't want to feed too late. You don't want to go into late fall or to push growth heading into winter, because then plant, it's not that new growth is gonna be affected by the winter and damaged. But once a month during the growing season, really, as a rule of thumb for your perennials, annuals, and your veggies. Tomatoes tend to be heavier feeders. You can go every 2 weeks there. Your trees, your ornamental trees, fruit trees, early spring, as late as mid-October, and then your evergreens, your acid loving, same thing, early spring. You can go as late as mid-November there, but you don't want to go too late. You don't want to go first week of December, and push growth really heading into winter, because you don't want that you don't want to do that with the harsh winter months.
Mm-hmm. And is there a product that you recommend specifically for urban gardening, both the tones and maybe your soil line? I know that we carry the Espoma Organic potting mix, and our staff raves about it and has so many wonderful things. And I just bought a bag this week. So
sure. A must-do product for me, and I think for your urban gardeners, or even people in suburbia, is that Biotone Starter Plus.
Mm-hmm.
I use it again when I do for all plantings. Again, even when I'm repotting my house plants or potting up a new plant. So that's a go-to for me. I always have a bag of Plantone ready as well, because I tend to have a lot of different things in my yard. So sometimes I like to simplify and go with the Plantone. I love I'm going to say every product, right? But those are two that come to mind. As far as indoor, we do have an indoor liquid. We talked about, I mentioned Plantone in your outdoor containers. Sometimes it gets a little cumbersome bringing a granular for your indoor plants. So we do have an indoor line, an 8-ounce bottle. I don't know if you can see it. This little indoor, this will make 8 gallons. You basically just mix it in with your watering can, feed every 2 to 4 weeks. Gives you a nice 222 slow release fertilizer. And we also put the biotone microbes in this product as well. So that would be a go-to one for your indoor house plants. So, and then the soil. I'll briefly touch on the soil. Yes, our potting soil is also approved for organic gardening, approved by the CDFA. When we designed our potting soil, you need three things really, actually four things for soil. You need it to provide enough air. It needs to provide aeration is critical. A lot of people don't think of it, but for your potted plants, you need to make sure there's air circulation that goes all the way through the root zone. You don't want your roots sitting in damp soil and compacted soil. So our soil provides that. It's also, you want a soil that will hold moisture really well, and our soil does that as well. And you also want it to provide structure. So you don't want it to blow over outside on the deck, or you want it to be able to support the plant. So our soil does all three. We also put our proprietary mycorrhizae in there as well. You'll have mycotone in there. We fortify it also with earthworm castings, and earthworm castings are fantastic. It's basically a slow release fertilizer in itself, and they are what they sound like they are. It's worm poop, but that provides major nutrients and minor nutrients for the plant, and it's also a great source of humus that you're providing in your pot. So we fortify our potting mix with earthworm castings. We also put a little limestone in there to counterbalance the peat moss. Peat moss tends to be acidic. We talked about pH. You want your potted plants to be more in a neutral environment. So we do add a little bit of lime in there as well to kind of counterbalance the acidity of the peat moss. And then we also put in a yucca extract that actually acts as a natural surfactant. It brings nutrients and water down evenly into the root zone and holds it there. So, yeah, our potting soil is definitely, and it goes great with the indoor potting liquid, or the indoor houseplant food.
Very cool. Well, I know that Espoma has a lot of great resources for gardeners. What's the best way for a customer or just anyone researching to get all that information?
Sure, I would say go to our website at espoma.com. We have a lot of articles there. Our blog is there. We have a lot of videos. We have that plant finder that I talked about that you could. It doesn't have every plant. I want to tell you, but we have a lot. So there's a lot of great information on our website that I would direct it. It's espoma.com is the website.
Awesome. And is there any closing advice that you'd like to provide, or?
The only thing I always say is, make sure you read and follow the directions on the bag, but don't feel. The great thing with our line, and you mentioned it earlier, there's some wiggle room in there, and you don't have to be perfect. But gardening should be fun. Have fun. Try different things. Try different products. Try planting different items. Fertilizer, our line will not only help your plants, survive, they're going to thrive, and that's really what we want to do, and at the same time add back to the soil and improve the environment.
Yeah. Well, very cool. Well, thank you so much for speaking with us today, Mike. I really appreciate your time and expertise. And the main thing I think I've learned today is that there's just so many different products for Espoma that, for every type of gardener, but they're all as easy to use as just sprinkling it out or just quickly, applying it. So it's really great that you come up with a product like that. Well, not you, of course, but we appreciate you sharing the information with us.
Yes. Thanks, Courtney. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And of course, this video will be available on our website as well as through social media. So everyone can check it out there. And thank you again for your time.
Thanks.
Okay.